Yeah, hello and welcome to another episode of the Spielworxx chat, season 3. My name is Uli Blennemann and I hope you are all well. I'm having a wonderful guest today. It is the Beast of Berlin, Ben Maddox. Welcome, Ben. How are you?
Am I allowed to speak now?
Yes.
Because Uli, for the listeners and watchers, he said to me, "I'm going to do this intro. Please don't speak." And I threatened to pepper him with a load of expletives. But I'm a professional, so I didn't. But I didn't know when I was allowed. But I'm allowed to speak now, am I?
Yes.
It's not like Germans to be authoritarian, Uli.
Of course not. Never ever. I would do so.
Oh, when this show goes down, actually, I've got a couple of game ideas to pitch you. So we'll do that. We'll do that afterwards.
I think so. I think so. And greetings to Austria from my side already now. And
Wie geht's dir? Alles gut oder was? My Austrian accent there? Faultless.
getting back to English, I think this is better. And I've one.
Machen, wenn du willst, Uli. Das ist gar kein Problem.
I know, Ben, which I know, your German actually is very, very good. And I like it a lot because it has this Austrian slang dialect, whatever it is. So in my bloody German ears, it sounds wonderful. So
I don't sound like a robot, which is great. Because the Germans sound like robots. No offense to the Germans.
I'm not sure about that. But I have one Spielworxx news item very quickly.
Oh, I'm excited.
You should. Till the very end of the year.
Have you rehired Steve?
Not yet. This is for 2025. So maybe, or 26, I think. But till the very end of this year, I have several special deals on my website. So if you are interested, please take a look, and I put in the URL here. So this is till December 31, till the very end of the year. But so to start, Ben, for people, the 3 or 4 or 5 who do not know you.
Was that the Spielworxx news?
Pardon?
Was that the Spielworxx news?
Yes, that's enough.
That's not enough. You gotta. Okay, over at Spielworxx.com, we've got all the offers you need. We've got free stuff. We've got almost free stuff. If you buy a game, Uli will give you a big kiss. Spielworxx.com. Kiss with each game.
So, Ben, what are you doing in gaming? Anyway.
So it's interesting. So I am the host and manager and CEO. I love that. You go on so I've been doing internet dating, and you go on people's profiles and it says CEO, and they're not. I mean, they're clearly not CEOs. These people, they're not CEOs. But I am CEO of 5 Games for Doomsday, the podcast of record for the board game industry, the best interviews around. I also do design notes on the Dice Tower, where I interview people. Uli, you've been a guest on it.
Yeah, I'm still astonished about this. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've been on the Dice Tower. You should feel privileged. I am the agony aunt for Tabletop Gaming UK, and I write reviews over there. I'm the voice of the app of my father's work and the video of the Kickstarter campaign for Oranienburger Kanal,
Yes.
Unconscious Mind, various other things. So I do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Tangentially to games. I'm not one of the real people who actually makes them.
Yeah, but we're getting to this a little bit later.
Maybe.
Making games. And Tony is saying there is no beginning to Ben's talents. Yeah.
Well, quite.
Absolutely. So, and I put the URLs.
Metzler sent me a message today, not today, a few days ago, telling me that she listened to my piece about Essen and was in tears. So, that's a thing, isn't it?
It is. It is. Actually, I must say that piece was very well done. So,
is it because you were mentioned in
it? Of course, because of that. But if you check here the URL which I put in here, you'll find that fine piece and a lot of others. So, right. Tears of Rage.
I'm writing a piece I'm currently writing a piece about Gathering of Chums at the moment, so we should watch what he says, just in case that changes my reflection of him in the piece. You see.
Actually, yes. So, because we are already in early December of this year, what do you think, while looking back at the gaming year 2022, what was your highlight, or maybe plural, what were your highlights in gaming? Doesn't have to be games, but in gaming.
So I have a game, and I'll come to that in a bit, but the thing is, it's my highlight every year, I think. And that's LyriaCon. So for those who don't know, LyriaCon is a small convention. I guess it's like 1,000 people at tops.
Yeah, even less, I think.
Yeah, on the coast of Portugal. And it's this wonderful thing. So they hire out this 4-star hotel, and it's very, very cheap, and it's full board, and it's, loads of booze and being naughty. And what's so great about it is that, I live in Berlin, and Northern Europe is just grim. And by the time the con is, which is March, you've really just had enough of miserable winter weather and grey days. And you go to Portugal, and it's like you've stepped into another land. This year we stayed in Lisbon a few days before, and Lisbon's such a vibrant, exciting, very southern city. It feels so fundamentally different to Berlin.
Yeah.
Berlin is very flat, very open. Lisbon is hilly, and exotic, and there are palm trees everywhere, and it's really indicative of sort of Mediterranean architecture. And then the convention is just spectacular. Everyone's so nice.
Yes.
And they look after you so well. And, I love Essen, and Essen's wonderful, but Essen isn't a gaming convention for me. I go around and I meet people and I do work and things, whereas LyriaCon is a non-stop gaming thing for 4 days, and it's just absolutely wonderful. And it's like every time you go to a convention, it's brilliant. It never feels long enough, and the Sunday is always super melancholy because you're leaving and you're going back to the normal humdrum of life. But LyriaCon is so great, and if you're watching this and you get the opportunity, you really should try and get out to it, I think.
Yeah, and I think you are 100% correct. So, and I was thinking about my highlight of the year, and it is the same thing, LyriaCon. So wonderful people, wonderful location directly at the Atlantic, and everybody is taking care of everything of your needs. So it's really the place to be. So
if you do go though, I would recommend one thing. If Uli recommends you play a game after dinner and says, it'll only last an hour, say no. Simply say no to it.
And especially if you notice, I'm not playing. So.
Oh, absolutely. And you go to bed. The game goes on till 3 o'clock in the morning and you're in bed by midnight. Absolutely disgraceful behaviour. I was saying some terrible things about you.
And Tony's already mentioning an infamous Traffic. Awesome game. Yes. I agree. Awesome teacher.
Amazing. Uli, after 3 glasses of wine, is the best teacher in the world. It's like watching, it's like watching a mixture of a Batman villain and someone who's just escaped a lunatic asylum trying to tell you how to play a game.
So I think that was perfect. You just were not listening well.
That's what it was.
And hello, Hans. Good seeing you. And Hans is bringing in football in here. Hans from the Netherlands. He's saying German. Schade Deutschland, alles ist vorbei.
Well, I think Germany have done the decent thing, because I think this World Cup is disgusting. I think they've murdered lots of people getting the World Cup to start, and I think the Germans just said, that's it, we're not participating. That's the excuse I'd be using.
Yeah, but Italy did it even better. They never qualified because they didn't want to attend. But I haven't seen a single minute. I must say I'm not watching national teams normally, but in Qatar,
it's killing me. I love football and I love the World Cup, and it's killing me that I kind of can't watch it just because all those people died. So I feel terrible about watching it and endorsing it,
Yeah, absolutely. And getting back to Laria for a second. So really, as Ben said, everybody who has the time, who can go, should really look into it, and because it's wonderful. And my favorite moment at Laria were the late afternoons of each day, because it's March, but the weather is already Portugal pretty nice. It's not really that warm, but you can
sort
go
of 18,
to the beach.
19 degrees, right?
Yeah, Celsius, and you can go to the beach and have already a beer, stare at the sea. So that's wonderful. It's really and in the company of lovely people. That was my personal highlight each day.
It's that thing of it being literally
Yeah.
a 5-minute walk. You could see the beach from the hotel.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not even 5 minutes to the beach. It's a minute and a half.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just, especially, you know, I'm in dirty, grimy, old, miserable Berlin, and by March I'm ready to stab everybody. And you just go there, and it's just such a liberation. And Portugal's such a lovely country. This year we stayed in Lisbon for a couple of days, and then we stayed in Évora, which is sort of in between Lisbon and Leiria, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at geography. And we would stop for coffee in these little Portuguese villages. And, you know, I remember there was me, the dynamic and intelligent Isaac Shalev, and my partner, Steve Syrek, podcast partner. It's not like that. I wish, but he's married. And, you know, we bought 3 sandwiches, 2 coffees and a beer, and it cost me €7.
Yeah.
And it's just, and it's just, Portugal's everyone's so nice.
Yes.
And it's such a wonderful country. And
highly recommend it. And outside of Lisbon and Porto, everything is also very inexpensive. And Tony has a good point. And of course, yes, I can confirm he did this. He went para surfing too.
Tony did, yeah.
Of course.
He went on he went paragliding.
Yeah.
Incredibly brave for a man of his advanced years.
Yeah, I think Tony's turned 80 this year, but he's still doing this.
I mean, he looks great for 95. He really does look good for 102.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben, what is your personal best game of this year?
Now,
if you have a single
I am
game.
involved with this game. I was paid to do something for this game, but that's not the reason I'm choosing it. I played it again just the other day, and there's something I like. There's something I love in gaming, and that's when you could really feel the designer has set out to design this magnum opus that often maybe isn't 100% successful, but is such a demonstration of their abilities and their desire to do something grand. And my father's work is brilliant. And I've played each scenario now, and sure, it's a sort of worker placement, recipe fulfilling game, but it's so interesting and epic in scope, and it's genuinely good to play. And it's a long game, but it's 3 hours long, not Colonists 8 hours.
Yeah, okay,
you know?
Okay.
And it's a really solid game. It's really interesting. I would have edited 50% of the writing out personally. I think it's a little overwritten, but that's the point of these big follies. That they're wonderful things. I mean, Apocalypse Now is a movie that you could argue could have a lot cut from it, but it's still a wonderful, flawed experience. And my father's work is that. I love it. I think, it's my game of the year by miles, I think.
So who's the company, and the designer is?
So it's Renegade who published it, and it's T.C. Petty the Third.
The third,
the designer,
yes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And it's you can tell that it's something he truly
wanted to do.
He truly wanted, and it's uncompromising. And you know, I'm someone who always moans about overproduction in games, and it's hugely overproduced.
Renegade. So yeah.
Yeah, but nevertheless, it's really good. I wouldn't play it with full player count, but 3 players is always the best number to play games with anyway. And yeah, it's fantastic. It feels really epic, and I highly recommend it.
Interesting. So yeah, I haven't played it, but I haven't played. Or I'm not playing that many games because mostly it's prototypes and test gaming when I'm testing. And hello, Blue Dane 7, good seeing you. So, but I will check it out. So
I mean, saying that, it's expensive, right? And I got my copy for free because I did the voice for the app for it. I can understand.
So tell us something about the app. Is this necessary? Is it mandatory?
The app's completely necessary. It guides you through the game. It's weird because I did it on very short notice. The turnover for the voice is very short notice. I kind of have issues with my performance on it, but that's by the by. But what's so strange is there's lots of text, but only a fifth of it, a sixth of it is actually read out. I only read a fifth or sixth of what's in the app. And, it's fine if you're playing with me because you get the full experience because I read out all the other bits as well. So it's fully, but it's weird. And I think it was one of those things that there was a lot of bugs at the beginning, especially with the app. And I think that's been ironed out now. And in the future, I think the game will feel a lot smoother. But as is the nature with these big, grandiose things, if they have all of the sort of mistakes developed out of them, they can end up feeling a little sterile. And my father's work it certainly doesn't feel like that. It feels like the endeavor of a single obsessive mind, which is to its credit, I think.
Yeah, interesting. And Tony is saying that you did a marvelous job with the app. Generally speaking, I'm not, but this is just me. I haven't found a single game that I love that uses an app. Do you think it distracts? So obviously not in these games, but in general terms, or does it feel natural to you, or is it really something?
I'm not a fan by and large. I mean, the whole purpose for me of gaming is to get away from screens, right? I spend so much time completely addicted to my phone, so I spend so much time looking at screens, looking at computers. I write for a living, and the nature of it is sitting in front of a screen. So games are an escape from that. So, but as with everything, it's fine if 0.01% of games have apps.
Yes.
If 50% of games have apps, then I'm questioning my desire to be involved in the whole thing. But so I have Deal with the Devil. And that has a very unobtrusive app. Unfortunately, I don't think the game's up to much. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Fundamentally, like XCOM, I think is really good. And that uses an app.
Yes.
And it uses an app really, really well. And I think my father's work uses an app really, really well. It guides you through certain things that if you were to do them manually,
then
it would spoil the surprise. And also be so incredibly fiddly that it would make the game unworkable. Okay. So I don't think you should ever say by and large no to these things, but the less digital in games, the better, I think.
Interesting.
I mean, people talk about I watched this Reiner Knizia thing that Euronews did on him the other day, and he talks about maybe in the future you have this digital thing that you roll it out and you upload a board. To this digital board, and it's like, okay, fine, and if it happens, right? But I like the willful sort of Ludditeness,
absolutely,
of board games, that they're completely analog and they don't care, and it's wood and cardboard, and it feels like it should have been gone in the Victorian age, but it still survives and it's still brilliant, and people can still make wonderful things out of these rudimentary components, and that's part of the reason I love it, I think.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And when Tony was really saying that you did a marvelous job, he added later that obviously he hadn't neither heard your voice there nor played the games.
Sure. But unconditional support, I'm for it. It's like when people say, I say to people, back my Patreon, and they say, but I don't listen to your podcast. I'm like, I don't care. You don't need to listen to my podcast. Just give me your money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So my game of the year, actually, I don't have a game of the year. As I said, I'm not playing enough other games, or not playing as much as I would love to. But if I would have to pick a single game, it would be a very small, tiny game, and I played it just yesterday again with a lovely oldie. So it's Air, Land and Sea by Arcane Wonders, published by Arcane Wonders, designed by John Perry. And I must say that it packs a lot. It's a 2-player card game with just 18 cards and a couple of pieces for victory points, cardboard pieces, that's it. Playing time is maybe 15 to 20 minutes, but it packs a lot into a very small package. It's just 2-player and straightforward confrontation, but very, very cleverly done. So I'm really impressed.
The interactions on the cards, I played it myself last week, and the interactions on the cards are fantastic.
Yes.
And it's one of those games where you can think you've got it all in the bag, and then one card play can just screw you over completely. And it's, I think in a game that lasts 3 hours, that kind of take that is just too much. But in a game that lasts 20 minutes, 2-player game, it's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get to the next question, Tony is asking, please ask Ben about his Aural, Aural, Aural Advent calendar. So
ask him about my Aural Advent calendar. So me and Steve. So Steve is stranded because he has some family issues. Steve is
He's in the US, right? He's in the US right now.
He's got some family issues. He's stranded in the US at the moment. So I think he wants to speak to someone who's not a family member, and I think we can all get behind that. And so he said, why don't we do an advent calendar? So basically what we're doing is we're going through 25 games that sort of formed us as gamers, and we're releasing them daily up until Christmas, basically. And so we've dealt with Iron Dragon and Pandemic and what else? Conditiore.
Yeah, very nice game, by the way.
Yeah, and there's loads more to come. Today shouldn't really be on a Christmas list because it's very much a horror game, but City of Horror is my choice because it was one of the first games I bought, and I really loved it, and I still do. And yeah, it's just a daily thing, and it's cool, and you should listen to it. And they're no more than sort of 15 to 20 minutes long, so it won't take up much of your day. Walk your dog. Download the podcast. Be on Patreon. Or just deposit 100,000 euros in my bank account.
Yes, of course. And you see the if you scroll a little bit, the URL is over there. But have you noticed any gaming trends this year? Or are there any gaming trends recently? Could be 2 or 3 years long. Anything in your opinion? What happened in gaming?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's funny because trends, because of Kickstarter, you have trends before games come out, which is a kind of weird thing. So you'll have a load of Kickstarters that are very similar, and then they come out. And I mean, what amazes me about Kickstarter, I mean, this is a trend I've seen, a sort of macro trend in board gaming, is that people get completely obsessed about a game, and then when it comes out,
completely
no
forgotten.
one's interested in it anymore.
Yeah.
They've moved on. The cult of the future is a real trend in gaming, and so I think the pandemic wasn't a good thing, but my hope is that the pandemic will encourage us to think more about the present. What with shipping issues and transport issues, I see. So when I got into gaming sort of seriously around 2012. And it still really felt like people in their bedrooms designing games. There were few big companies, and it's got more and more professional. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I hope it doesn't go in the direction in which computer games have. Yeah. That it becomes very much about proprietary information and secrecy and all of that sort of stuff. I hope there's this, the wonderful thing about board gaming, and the companies speak to each other and they talk to each other about their projects and they ask for advice. It's still very much a community. So I hope that remains. And I guess the biggest trend I've seen is from my side, which is from the kind of media side. So I look a lot at that, and it's a rather worrying trend that I think the more and more Instagram becomes the sort of primary delivery form for board game media, the more and more you see that people are no longer criticizing games, people are marketing games.
Yeah.
And, I'm very much of the view that a reviewer's job is to stop you buying a game, not encourage you to buy games. Because, for all of the big reasons, just you see people going to conventions and buying 50 games, and you think, how many of those are you going to play,
Yeah.
And what I see on Instagram is, I think by and large, people are doing it because they're enthusiastic. But more and more, you see people just showing themselves with a game box, and people saying things like, and I think this is a really troubling thing, I don't like to dwell on the negative. Well, sometimes things are bad, right?
Yeah.
Things are bad, and you should tell people, if people depend on you and your opinion, if you're an influencer and you're influencing them, just because you shouldn't sell your soul for the price of a free game. And, if you're doing marketing, if you're working with a company, you should declare that. And it's so funny. I'm a member of the board game media group on Facebook, and they should just rechristen the name of the group to the "How do I get free games" group on Facebook. That's all anyone talks about. And they have euphemisms like partnerships with companies. What that means is send me a free game, and of course, getting free games is cool and all of that, but fundamentally, and I bang this drum a lot, if you're someone who is in the media, whatever sort of, from small to big, your job and your obligation is fundamentally to the people who consume what you do. And to side yourself with the people who are trying to sell things, I don't think is a defensible position, unless you say we are a marketing company and our job is to market. Then you understand that their enthusiasm might not be the most sincere thing in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I see something. Yeah, I see basically the same thing. And now that PAX Unplugged is over, and during PAX Unplugged, what I'm noticing, and which I don't like at all, is seeing all these lewd pictures. And you see there is influencers, content creators, which have in their hotel room on the bed 50 games. And so what does it mean? So I got more free games than you.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a demonstration. And I fell into this trap at one point, right? I really fell into this trap of judging the worth of the work that I produce started to be judged on who was willing to send me free stuff and how much free stuff I could get. And if some other channel was getting this game at Essen for free and I wasn't, it drove me wild. And I remember one company just telling me I didn't have enough downloads per month to get on their reviewer list, and it, driving me wild for a week. And then it's part of the reason I think I stopped doing reviews on my podcast channel, and I still do them occasionally, but the reason I stopped is because I realized I can't judge my worth based upon who's going to give me free stuff, because the point is, people giving me free stuff has literally nothing to do with the quality of the stuff I produce. It's all to do with, do they consider me financially worthy? And I grew up as a lefty student and all of this, and to fall into that trap of turning yourself, and you can't be naive, you've got to make money, but turning yourself and your whole sort of ethos into a capitalist kind of machine is such a betrayal of kind of everything I believe, really. And so what I do sometimes get free games, but I almost never ask for them anymore. And basically that allows me to essentially do exactly what I want when I want it and in the style I want it, and just hope that people who listen to what I do like it and You know,
Yeah, but this is always best to do this. And Tony is saying quality, not quantity. Yes, and he bought just 6 games at Spiel, and to date I've played. He's saying I played only one of them. So yeah, it is. If you're purchasing 50 games, when can you play them? When can you really explore them?
and I
It's
remember
impossible.
I was looking to buy a game, and I wanted, and it was not a game. So there are certain games that are just insta buys for me, but this one I wanted to know a bit. I wanted to know whether the game was any good, essentially. And I went onto YouTube to look for a review of it. And I mean, I'm mentioning no names here because that's particularly dignified. But every channel who had a review of this game up, I didn't trust. There are a lot of YouTube channels that I mean, and I'm saying no names, but if you go to a YouTube channel and they don't say negative things about any of the games they review, something is going on there. And there are a couple of fairly high-profile channels that are marketing organizations, and their goal is to form partnerships with publishers. And, you know, it's the way they're making their money, and that's fine and everything, but you should tell people. You don't call things reviews when they're clearly not, when they're clearly a marketing pitch.
Yeah.
And I can think of 2 off the top of my head, and as I say, I'm not going to mention any names, 2 fairly big channels that do that. And it's funny, the biggest one in the business is the one I trust the most. I think the Dice Tower are kind of utterly blameless in this.
Yeah.
They focus on really.
Yeah, they have negative reviews and everything. It's the opinion can be negative, can be positive, can be neutral, and that's absolutely fine in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Hans is saying, getting back to the trends, a lot of new versions of older games came out in the last 3 to 4 years, and sometimes also in big box versions. Yeah, I agree. Big box versions is first. They look different and you can make more money, higher margins. But I think the market is growing for the last 10 years, and this market growth has accelerated over the last 5 years. And that means also that quite a few people who have entered the hobby, the industry, in the last 3 or 4 years haven't had a chance to see these older games. And sometimes they are only 7 or 8 years old, but there was just a single edition or maybe 2 editions, and then off they went. So I think it's natural. It's natural that they reappear. But yes, Hans, you are right. I noticed the same thing. Ben?
At Tony's convention a couple of weeks ago, we played Princes of Florence, which is 90s, I think.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I played it, and it's brilliant. And there's a new version of that coming out next year, I think. And, you know, it's great. I think you should always republish these older games because they're so great. But for the love of everything that is holy, I mean, that Castles of Burgundy edition. I love Alea games. Everyone complains about them, but I love the fact that they're brilliant games in €30 boxes.
Yeah. And
I guess, you know, you can still buy the Castles of Burgundy thing, so it's not a massive complaint, I guess. But I just look at it and I go, that's not what I want from my Euro games. I don't want my Euro games to have 25 monstrous dildos on the board every time I play it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked
this might be a case of an old man shouting at a cloud.
Yeah, maybe. But I talked to Stefan Feld, the designer of Castles of Burgundy at Essen, and he said, Ravensburger, basically, they approached him. Are you okay with this? We are putting it at GameFound because Ravensburger owns a part of GameFound, so it's their site.
Right. Okay.
And they said, can we do this? And we will do all these plastic miniatures. And Stefan said, yeah, well, if you would like to do this, I'm okay with this. So he wasn't really enthusiastic too. I think financially it is successful. So, but sure. If you just seeing it from this perspective, and Tony is saying the same thing here, Princess of Florence, Puerto Rico classics that need reissuing. In his opinion, I'm also, these games, these classics should be available all the time. So new people have a chance to play these games. Yes, there are games versions on the second hand market, but it's something else if you can purchase a game in a store and not by accident in a garage sale. But talking about game publishing, Ben, you are a game designer, publisher soon too, right?
Well,
tell us something about this.
So on my channel, I've been doing actual plays of solo role-playing games, journaling role-playing games. And I was back home after Tony's convention. I was back home in the town I grew up, and I was walking around, and I had a great idea for a solo role-playing game. And it's still in my head at the moment, you know. It's but I've got the basic. So the thing is, before I could really talk about, I feel like I can talk about it in public now. It's heavily based on a game system from a game I played called Long Haul 1983. And when I say heavily based, I mean basically lifted. And so I got in touch with the designer and I asked him to give me his blessing. And the thing is, especially the RPG community, so many different RPGs are based on the same systems. So I've tweaked the mechanisms a bit, but it's essentially the same engine with a different and what it is it's a solo role-playing game where you have been summoned back to your hometown by somebody. It may be a family member, it may be a long-lost friend, it could be an old boss or work colleague or whatever, and they've summoned you back. They want to talk to you and they won't tell you why. And you arrive back and you get to their place and they're not there. And so you decide to take a walk around your hometown. And everything is the same, but everything is subtly different. And throughout the play of the game, you realize the sinister underbelly of your hometown. So it's kind of reminiscent of Shadow over Innsmouth by H.P. Lovecraft. But what's important about the game is you should be able to create what the corruption is. You should be able to create who the person is you're visiting. You should be able to create the secret that is inhabiting the town. And over the course of these 2 hours, you will write journal entries explaining. And what it is, you draw a card and its number and its suit gives you a prompt. You read that prompt and that gives you something. So one of the prompts I've come up with is you notice you're in front of a building you know well in the town, and you never noticed before that there is a symbol above the door. What is the symbol, and what does that imply to you? And that's one of the prompts, right? And that could be anything. That could be a Masonic symbol. It could be, you know, a blue plaque. We have blue plaques in England talking about historical events. It could be one of those. It could be anything. And I was speaking to this guy about designing the game, and he said, you should give the players free rein, but not too much. Because if you give them too much, the game becomes very flabby and open and people don't know what to do. So it's striking that balance. And that's what the design process is for this, for me. It's striking that balance between giving the players a lot of agency, but also fencing them in enough so the game is tight and dynamic. And so the plan is to finish it sort of by the end of the year, at least the first draft, send it to people I know to give it a read through so they can tell me it's terrible, work on it, and then this is very embryonic, but the hope is to maybe have it up on Kickstarter February, March-ish, because it's an RPG, there's no components essentially. You know, it's a PDF, so it's a lot of, I've already got a graphic designer on board, and then and I will play it on my channel as a sort of, because I can do marketing for my own bloody game, you know. And so that's the plan. And I just need to sit down and write it now. I've started, and hopefully I'll finish it someday.
Yeah, very exciting. So I'm really looking forward to it, and because especially because Tony is dropping some secrets here as well, because he's saying he will publish the game and he's offering you 2% of MSRP royalty. So Tony, you are a very generous person, and Tony's saying he has already worldwide rights, so which must be correct, because I'm getting the German language rights from Tony.
You and Tony already
negotiated this, and he's saying good. German rights are free. Ben is not getting anything here, and so
that sounds good. If I get that 2% of MSRP, I think is about
700.
Yeah, I'm thinking about 1,500 euros per thing. That's fine.
Yeah, then it all makes sense again. But before we close here, Ben, you are now also a hockey fan, a Roosters fan, right?
Absolutely. I'm Rooster crazy.
Yeah. So
I love the cocks.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the name of a male chicken, Uli.
Yeah, but yeah, it was wonderful because Ben and Matthias and Rocky, we attended the game at Berlin, at Dynamo Eastern Berlin against the Roosters, and the Roosters won. So it was a wonderful night.
And I was shouting and screaming whenever Roosters scored a goal. It was great. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought Roosters were terrible, but they thrashed Berlin.
But yeah, this is a terrible team. So what can you expect? Normally would have lost, but Tony is saying going to Roosters games with Uli is on my bucket list. Yeah, we have to see for Essen. The problem will be cars, and of course the game should be on Friday or on Thursday at Essen time. So if they have a home game, there at least is a chance.
And this time, if I'm 1 minute late to the meeting point,
you were
wait
20 minutes late.
1 minute.
No. 1 minute, yes, maybe even 5, but not 20. So, but thank you very much, Ben. This was, as usual, wonderful, great insights, and thank you also to all viewers. The next Spielworxx chat is in 2 weeks, and I will present Spielworxx and industry news. As I said, thank you all very much for your time. If you would like to reach me, please drop me a mail at uli@spielworxx.de. That is uli@spielworxx.de. Ben, how can people reach you best?
So you can go to 5gamesfordoomsday.com to listen to shows. You can go to Spreaker, which is my new host, and they give me money now, so you can go there and do it. You can go on Twitter at 5gamesfordoomsday, Instagram 5gamesfordoomsday,
Instagram
5gamesfordoomsday@gmail.com, patreon.com/5G4D. And also sirmeeple.com. I'm wearing, give me a second. You can't really see it. This is a jumper designed by Tony Boydell's brother-in-law. I think it's his brother-in-law. And that's at sirmeeple.com.
Sirmeeple.com. Okay.
Orders over $50, 20% off. Buy some 5G4D merch. There's tons of 5G4D merch there. Get a t-shirt.
Yeah. Before we close, that was my favorite moment at the UK Games Expo in 2019, or maybe 18-19, when we were over there, and one day I was wearing 5 Games for Doomsday t-shirt,
as you should.
And one person approached me and said, "Ben, can we do a photo? Can we do a photo?" And I said, "Yes, of course." So we took a selfie, and only afterwards he said, "Well, your accent is strange." But I said, maybe. But that was my favorite.
Impersonate me in public.
Yeah. No, that was really wonderful at the UK Games Expo. So, till December 20, 2 weeks, bleibt alle gesund. Support the Ukraine. This is a very difficult, tough winter for the Ukraine. If you can do something...
I can say this on Spielworxx chat, actually.
Pardon?
I think... So you sent us some games for the Ukraine appeal we did. And I haven't released this official, but I spoke to the guy I was doing it with, and I think we raised about 500 euros for Ukraine.
So that's very, very good. Yeah, and to everybody, stay safe, bleibt gesund. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye-bye.